They were the all-American couple.
Good-looking family, great kids, lived in a great neighborhood.
She was a beautiful school teacher.
Alicia was the total package. She had beauty and brains.
He was a handsome veteran.
One of those type personalities that seemed like everybody loved.
But just when it seemed they were bound for a life of happiness, a hail of gunfire stopped them dead in their tracks.
Please help me, please help me, please help me. Ma'am? Somebody shot my husband.
The shooting sparked a frantic manhunt.
The murder had so many questions and not a lot of answers.
And would ultimately expose a tawdry tale laced with lies, lust, and revenge served up at point-blank range.
It wasn't all sunshine and candy bars.
So many twists and turns.
I was sitting on the edge of my seat, wondering what's going to happen.
It reminds you of something from a movie.
June 3rd, 2004. It's a quiet summer evening in the upscale Jackson, Mississippi neighborhood of Lakeover.
You're talking about, a middle-class black professional neighborhood.
But at 11:10 p.m., an alarm is triggered at the home of Brian and Alicia Hughes.
It was loud enough and pronounced enough for me to know that something wasn't right.
When no one keys in the code, the security company calls the Hughes residence.
Somebody shot my husband. Please, somebody. Okay, ma'am, I'm going to call the police right back. Please, hurry. Okay.
Officers race to the Hughes residence. Guns drawn, they step inside and find a scene of unimaginable horror.
They found Brian Hughes in the front room. He was actually lying face down on the floor.
A vast pool of blood surrounds Brian. His wife, Alicia, is trembling beside him.
Brian, baby, wake up, please.
She was hysterical, crying, screaming, somebody help my husband. I need some help.
I screamed in vain. It was just unbelievable.
Officers attempt to administer first aid, but it's too late.
He was shot 5 times. He was shot in the hand. He was also shot in the groin area. The lethal shot entered his chest, and that's what killed him.
63, can you start us a couple of
The major crimes unit is notified, and in a matter of minutes, homicide detectives are there to initiate a sweep of the home.
What do we got?
We got a call from the alarm company, said there was a woman frantic, screaming, asking that they call the police. When we arrived on scene, we found him laying here. He was deceased when we got here. We've moved the wife back to the kitchen.
Okay. Have you swept the house yet?
No, sir.
Go ahead and sweep the house and let me know what you find.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
There's no sign of the gunman or the murder weapon, but officers find the couple's 2 young daughters, safe and sound, asleep in their bedroom. It appears the only eyewitness is Brian's wife.
Now, I know you're disturbed, but can you tell me what happened here tonight?
Brian had went out with his brother, and I went to sleep in the room with my daughters, and I heard a pop.
Alicia's statement to the police was that she was sleeping in the bed with her daughters, and then she heard popping sounds.
She heard this pop, pop, pop sound, and she thought it was coming from the air conditioning system in their home.
According to Alicia, that's when the alarm sounded.
She went to turn off the alarm, realized the door was open, closed the door, and as she was walking back, she saw her husband lying in a pool of blood.
Please help me, please help me, please help me.
This was a bad nightmare for Alicia. She lost her husband, kids lost the father.
Brian Lamar Hughes was born in Jackson, Mississippi in 1974. Even as a child, Brian was a natural leader who attracted friends and followers.
Brian was just everybody's friend. You look in the crowd, everybody kind of standing around Brian. That Brian is their boy. He was a very likable person.
In high school, Brian excelled both in the classroom and on the playing field. Also blessed with good looks and personality, he was popular with the girls as well.
Brian was tall, dark, and handsome. Definitely the type of man a woman would find attractive.
But even in high school, Brian was always looking for that one special person.
Hey.
Hey.
That is, until he laid eyes on fellow classmate Alicia Johnson.
Alicia was a very attractive young woman, very smart.
So what you up to? It was the end of class, and he was sitting there, and he was just looking at me.
Wanted to come through and tell you how pretty you were.
He was real spontaneous. He liked to do romantic things.
She was in love with him. You would look at this as one of those true love stories about two young folks, who began a relationship as high school sweetheart.
Your first love is exciting. It feels like nobody in the world understands or can possibly imagine how you're feeling. And for you, it feels like it's the only love that would ever exist in your world.
After high school, Brian and Alicia followed each other to nearby Jackson State University. But their newfound freedom and a sea of young co-eds quickly put their love for each other to the test.
They were still figuring out who they were, what they wanted, and Brian still had the desire to play around.
He was just a young man feeling his oats. I think Brian was into a lot of things.
Alicia and Brian ultimately decided to see other people. Shortly after that, Brian dropped out and enlisted in the Air Force.
Brian and Alicia's relationship was rocky in their 20s. It was on again, off again.
While Brian was in the Air Force, Alicia earned a master's degree in education and landed a teaching job at a local elementary school. Even though she dated other men during this time, Alicia still had a soft spot in her heart for Brian.
He was a good guy. He had a way about him where he could make you feel special, without really even trying.
And after 4 years in the Air Force, Brian returned to Jackson.
After the military, he came back home, and he followed in his father's footsteps and started working at Delphi Packard Electric, which is a major supplier for General Motors here in Mississippi.
He was a supervisor where they made General Motor parts.
What?
What's she doing?
I'm washing dishes. What you think?
But it wasn't just the job Brian came home for.
What you want me to do? Start right here?
You better stop.
They seemed to circle back around to each other after she completed her education and he completed his duration in the Air Force. There were still that young flame that was still going for each other. And they were able to rekindle that fire.
Brian and Alicia's desire for one another had never burned hotter. And this time, their passionate reunion was life-changing.
They were in love. That was her soulmate.
When Brian and Alicia hooked back up together, they were looking to build a life with each other and live that happily ever after together.
In the fall of 1999, almost a decade after they first started dating, Alicia and Brian welcomed the birth of their first child. 8 months later, they married.
So I just wanted to be, a good wife, a good mom, and good at what I did.
With the couple making good money, they bought and renovated a home in the charming middle-class neighborhood of Lakeover.
It was a modest middle-income type house, really, manicured lawn, neat subdivision, really nice if you go through there. It's one of those type subdivisions that you probably would want to live in.
They're moving into this great neighborhood. It's like, wow, they're doing it right.
The couple had even more to celebrate when Alicia gave birth to another baby girl in 2001.
They have these great kids. You think they're just, building a great life for themselves and just living the American dream.
You have these two young folks, they seem to be like, the ideal young family, with the two kids, two small kids. Both had good professionals going. The type family that most of us, sort of dream of.
Which makes the nightmarish scene police encounter inside the Hughes residence all the more tragic.
Everybody was shocked that this thing could even have occurred to these two people.
But who would want to kill Brian Hughes? And why?
Still trying to piece it.
As investigators dig deeper, a strange theory about the crime emerges. One that would shock everyone who'd ever known this seemingly storybook couple.
It's a true whodunit. And then when the story started to unravel, there was an even bigger mystery there.
High school sweethearts Brian and Alicia Hughes had gone their separate ways, only to reunite after college and reignite their red-hot romance.
Brian and Alicia were definitely a power couple. They seemed like the perfect romantic love story.
But that love story is ripped apart when police respond to a shooting at the Hughes residence and find Brian's body riddled with gunshot wounds.
It seemed like a mystery. No one knew exactly what happened on that night of June the 3rd, 2004.
A stunned Alicia tells police that she'd fallen asleep in her daughter's room, only to awake to the sound of what she thought was a noisy air conditioner. That's when the alarm sounded.
The door's open, the alarm system is going off. She goes into the front room and sees that her husband's been shot, bleeding out everywhere.
It was surreal. It was like an out-of-body experience. You feel so inept.
You just start thinking like, wow, this poor woman, this happens to her husband and with her kids in the house.
Please help me, please help me.
As detectives console Alicia, officers begin processing the scene.
Were there any signs of forced entry?
No, sir. We checked all the doors and windows. If they came in, they had to come in through the front.
Okay, thank you.
But on the front porch, they find evidence that suggests the attack on Brian began near the door.
There were 3 shell casings outside the door.
In the den, police recover 3 more shell casings, which suggest a total of 6 rounds were fired, and all but 1 made contact with their target.
This murder was pretty brutal. Brian was shot multiple times, so whoever shot him definitely wanted him dead.
Just outside the couple's home, detectives noticed something else.
There were skid marks in the street right in front of the residence.
Somebody had a car sitting outside. They went up there and shot him, got back in the car and sped away.
Between the shell casings, the skid marks, and the home's location in the upscale Lakeover neighborhood, authorities wonder if Brian has been the victim of a deadly robbery.
There was just so many scenarios of, who may have committed this crime.
When I first heard about it, I thought that it was someone from the outside came in and committed the murder. Jackson has more murders than it should have. I thought it could have been a burglary gone bad.
The crime scene suggests that somebody broke in and killed Brian, and that it was a random act of senseless murder and robbery.
But as they continue to search the residence, detectives realize there's a problem with that theory.
There was no sign of forced entry into the home. They didn't take anything.
As the mystery deepens, news of Brian's murder spreads through Jackson like wildfire.
My mom calls my phone, hysterical, crying. He's dead. Brian is dead. Brian is dead. They shot him and they killed him.
First thing I thought about, the 2 little girls. They don't have a daddy no more. And that made me mad. He was young.
Grieving friends and family soon converge on the Hughes residence. Police try to be sympathetic while preserving their crime scene.
Sir, we're still trying to piece the investigation together. Just hold tight, because we will have some questions for you later on.
The Hughes family was like a prominent family here in Jackson. The police allowed certain folks in the house, especially both relatives of Alicia Hughes and relatives of Brian Hughes, into the house that night.
Her family was there. A lot of people were there. Everybody was upset.
But no one seems more upset than Brian's wife.
Alicia is distraught. She can hardly speak. Understandably so, she's very, very upset.
I didn't want to be there. It was so difficult. It was just unbelievable.
In fact, Alicia is so distraught, she's of little use to detectives.
Listen, she's too upset, man. We're not going to get any information from her today.
Yeah, I agree. Let's cut her loose, and we'll talk to her in the morning.
A person in authority made the call to talk to her at a later time. Usually the detectives talk to all witnesses right then, right there, because all facts are fresh on your mind as they happen. But I believe that because Alicia Hughes was a school teacher, because they lived in a good neighborhood, an affluent part of Jackson, that they were given certain freedoms.
You got somewhere you can go with the kids?
Yeah.
Come on, we'll get you out.
Alicia packs an overnight bag, gathers her 2 girls, and heads to her mother's house. Meanwhile, detectives question friends and family gathered at the scene.
What's your name, sir?
Willie Hughes. And who are you in relation to the victim?
I was his brother.
Can you tell me where you were tonight?
We just went out to grab a few drinks. We got some fast food and I dropped him off, and that was the last time I saw him.
They had been out to a local restaurant, having a good time. He dropped off his brother that night. Apparently he stopped by a local fast food restaurant, got some food, came home that night.
Think maybe somebody followed him home, rang the doorbell, and he let him in?
That may explain the unforced entry.
And the shell casings outside.
Investigators float this theory by Brian's family, but they find it hard to believe Brian would answer the door for anyone at such a late hour.
If you didn't call and if you just go to the door and knock or ring the doorbell, he would not answer the door.
Brian would have never opened the door that night and allowed somebody in, open the door to anyone that night.
So if Brian wouldn't answer the door for a stranger, was it possible he knew his attacker? The answer to that question would scandalize all of Jackson, and in the process reveal a dark side to Brian and Alicia's romance that few had ever seen. The fairy tale romance of Brian and Alicia Hughes has ended in a flurry of gunfire.
Baby, wake up, please.
And we're talking about just two great individuals, loving relationship, great, perfect family that Norman Rockwell would paint about. And having gone through this was terrible.
Shell casings collected at the scene suggest Brian was initially shot near the front door, then again in the living room.
They were of the belief that someone, an outsider, broke in, obviously, because the alarm went off, and shot Mr. Hughes from that doorway.
But the lack of forced entry suggests Brian willingly let the shooter into his and Alicia's home. If that was the case, who was this mysterious acquaintance Brian allowed inside? And what sinister desires compelled them to murder him in cold blood? The one person who might help investigators answer that question is Brian's wife, Alicia. But the horror of discovering her husband's dead body has seemingly left Alicia too distraught to be of any use. And a few hours after the murder, detectives allow Alicia and her children to leave the scene and spend the night with some relatives. By the following morning, Alicia is ready to talk.
Good morning, Alicia. I just want to start off by thanking you for coming in this morning. I know you're distraught. I know it's a trying time. But I just wanted to ask you, is there anybody who would want to hurt Brian?
No. Everybody loved him.
Do you think you could walk us through the events of last night again?
Yeah, just put the girls to bed. And so I fell asleep.
Her story never changed, that she heard a loud popping or something.
I thought it was the air conditioning system, so I got up.
She said she went in the front room, and there she said she found her husband dead, lying on the floor.
Then the alarm company called and I answered the phone.
Now, you heard the popping noise before you heard the alarm?
Yeah, I heard the popping noise before I heard the alarm, but I guess they both were going off around the same time.
She gave a detailed statement. There was nothing really she could add, other than, I was in bed, I got up, and what happened.
Though Alicia's statement doesn't get investigators any closer to cracking the case, it does seem to dovetail with evidence collected at the scene and allows them to essentially rule her out as a possible suspect. But before they release her, detectives ask Alicia to submit to a gunshot residue test.
It's just standard procedure.
Sure.
After a quick dusting of her hands, she is free to go.
Thank you, ma'am.
They let her go.
We'll see you out.
The detectives did not think that she was a suspect.
So who did have the opportunity and the motive to pull off this brutal attack?
It's one of those situations where, dead men can't talk.
Perhaps, but maybe the dead man's autopsy could.
Brian was shot in several areas. He was shot in the chest area, in the arm, in the thigh area. What was interesting about one of those shots, he was shot near the groin area.
It just makes you wonder what was really going on and what led to that. Was it a crime of passion? Was it rage?
It's an interesting question. Brian is a handsome, charming man who seems to have it all. Is it possible someone murdered him out of jealousy? In an effort to answer that question, investigators interview several of Brian's friends and coworkers.
Fred?
Yeah.
Hey, how you doing? Detective Daniels?
Nice to meet you.
This is my partner, Detective Gibson.
In doing so, they unearth a shocking revelation.
Is there anything you can tell us about his lifestyle or shed any information on his life that might help us with this investigation?
I mean, Brian was a good man. He was there for his family, financially, but Brian loved women and women loved Brian. He never had any trouble meeting them.
So basically, he was a player.
Absolutely.
Many of his coworkers talked about how it was obvious that he was involved with women that he worked with. It was obvious that there was something intimate or romantic going on.
Brian could meet him anywhere because he knew every bar, every club, and he was friends with everybody. Jackson was his palate.
This is completely shocking that Brian, who lives this picture-perfect life, is having an affair. If you didn't know about the extramarital affairs, you would definitely not suspect that anybody would want Brian killed.
Fred Clark Jr., a friend of Brian's, also tells police about a conversation he overheard just 2 weeks before Brian's murder.
There was apparently some indication that the husband of one of the women that Brian had been seeing had confronted Brian, over the relationship.
Well, there was this one time I went over his house.
When I was walking in his front door, he was in this heated argument with this guy on the phone. The guy was cussing. I could hear the cuss words through the phone, and it was, all this if you. And the dude was like saying, "I'm gonna get you."
Show up in my yard if you want to.
And he basically told the person on the phone, if you do what you gotta do.
You. What's this all about, man?
He told me his girlfriend had been paying for his cell phone for about 2 years. And the girlfriend was married.
That was a husband on the phone.
Because they found out that he did have other lady friends, of course, anyone that would have been associated with them, the ladies as well as their partners, boyfriends or husbands, would be suspects.
That helps us a lot.
Sure.
Fred Clark's statement got investigators wondering. Had the woman's husband threatened to kill Brian if he didn't stop sleeping with his wife? And had Brian signed his own death warrant by daring the man to make good on it?
Brian is a man. I mean, you're not going to be intimidated by what another man's saying on the phone.
But who is Brian's mistress? And more importantly, who is the jealous husband? According to Brian's colleagues, the woman's name is Sandra Davis. She's married to Martin Davis, one of Brian's acquaintances. When confronted, Martin doesn't deny he'd recently discovered his wife was sleeping with Brian. Nor does he deny threatening Brian over the phone in a rage. Investigators are suspicious. They subpoena Brian's phone records to see if he'd been in contact with either of the Davises in the days leading up to the murder.
Investigators discovered that right before Brian's murder, that he was speaking to somebody on the phone.
Brian hung up the phone.
Gotta go.
That was about 10 minutes before he was killed.
Could this phone call be from Martin Davis or his wife? And is it another heated exchange that led to Brian's murder? In a case already dripping with allegations of infidelity and deceit, the answer to that question would prove more scandalous than investigators ever imagined. The brutal slaying of Jackson, Mississippi native Brian Hughes has taken a bizarre turn. In speaking with friends and coworkers, detectives have learned the dream life Brian was living with his beautiful wife Alicia is a mirage, and that Brian was anything but a model husband.
The extramarital affairs and several women on the side, it just cracks the mirror of what you thought this family was like.
But the allegations of Brian's infidelity have allowed investigators to zero in on a possible suspect, a man named Martin Davis. Martin's wife Sandra had been having a torrid affair with Brian.
The husband threatened the next time he interacts with his wife, he was going to hurt Brian.
You.
A search of cell phone records reveals Brian was on the phone with someone just minutes before he was murdered. Investigators suspect that if that phone number traces back to Martin Davis, then they've likely identified Brian's killer. But it turns out the number isn't registered to Martin Davis, but rather to one Robbie Rayford.
Was a possible jealous husband of one of the women that Brian was having an affair with.
But when investigators pay Robbie Rayford a visit, they're shocked by who greets them.
Hello. Can we speak to Robbie Rayford, please?
I'm Robbie Rayford. This Robbie person, whom Brian was speaking to before his murder, was actually a girl and not a guy.
Robbie is devastated to learn Brian has been murdered, and she pulls no punches as to why.
We've been sleeping together
for 2 years. Brian and I are in love.
Robbie genuinely loved Brian Hughes. She wanted to be with him.
She talked about, how they had had relationships. They had had sex, numerous times.
When was the last time you spoke?
A few days ago.
Yeah, just got home.
She said she heard Brian come in, set the alarm system at the house, turn the TV on.
So I come see you tomorrow. Gotta go.
And then he said, I have to go.
Is that unusual?
No, that's our code for my wife is in the room.
Robbie said that was the code word that, she and Brian used to let her know that Alicia was there.
If that's the case, that means that she was there in the living room and possibly during the time that he was killed.
Investigators are floored. Not only does Robbie Rayford's statement call into question Alicia Hughes' version of events, it vaults Alicia to the top of the list of possible suspects.
Maybe she heard him on the phone. He thought she was asleep. He was talking to his girlfriend. She got her gun. She walked into the living room where she pointed the gun at him.
Lie me one more time. Come on.
And again and again and again.
Though it's admittedly hard for investigators to imagine the beautiful Alicia Hughes as a vengeful killer.
It just doesn't make sense that this lady, this petite, frail school teacher, would have killed him and or have done it in this particular way.
Although investigators can't help but think back to the intensely personal nature of Brian's injuries.
If Alicia is the shooter in this case, that groin shot was one that may have been personal for her. If you're going to cheat on me, here's one for you.
But neither Brian's mortal wounds nor Robbie Rayford's statement are enough to concretely link Alicia to the murder. And forensic evidence collected at the scene still suggests that whoever shot Brian initiated the attack from just outside the front door.
There were 3 shell casings found outside the door on the doorstep. Somebody would have had to been out front shooting the gun.
Investigators decide to revisit the crime scene to see if there's anything they might have missed.
Just doesn't make sense.
There was no traces of blood from the front door to where he was, where his body was found.
There's no blood splatter on the walls or nothing?
All the blood that was found was directly beneath his body on the floor in the living room. He was shot with a .45 caliber handgun. It's a big, large caliber handgun. He was shot 5 times. Somehow, from the foyer to the living room where his body was found, he didn't bleed 1 drop.
If he got shot by a .45, we would have had splatter on the floor, on the walls or something, but all the blood's right here.
Their theory was that you would have seen blood from the beginning of where he was shot into the living room area, and someone actually got those shell casings from the inside and actually placed them on the outside.
If that's the case, then the shooting was initiated by someone inside the home.
Alicia?
And she staged the casings outside?
But what about the tire tracks found outside the couple's home? They suggest someone may have quickly fled the scene. In speaking with one of the Hughes neighbors, that fact is also called into question.
The women that we interviewed never said anything about they heard a car.
We don't know when they were put there. Skid marks can stay on pavement for months and months before they wear off from water and erosion. That's the problem with skid marks.
The affairs, the blood evidence, Robbie Rayford's statement.
2 years.
It appears the circumstantial evidence now points to Alicia Hughes as her husband's killer. But is jealousy a bona fide motive?
Why couldn't she have just divorced him? If he had all these affairs and she was sick of him fooling around, you get a divorce. She was a school teacher. She had a job. The money's coming every month. So why kill him?
But when they pull Brian and Alicia's financial records, investigators find another clue.
There were 2 life insurance policies. One was $250,000, and I believe there was a small one for around $80,000. And that was going to go away once they got the divorce. Now, the way that wouldn't go away is if Brian died and she got the life insurance money.
Suspicion only deepens when investigators contact Brian and Alicia's insurance company. It turns out they had received a phone call from Alicia just weeks after Brian's death.
It's pretty shocking for Alicia to be inquiring about the interest that she would be making on her husband's life insurance policy, considering that her husband had been brutally murdered.
Still, without additional physical evidence, investigators have no way of charging Alicia with any crime. Then on February 3rd, 2005, investigators received word from the state crime lab. The results of the gunshot residue test, administered to Alicia almost as an afterthought, have come back positive.
Either you fired a gun, held a gun, or was close to when a gun was fired. Those are the only three reasons it would be on the back of your hand.
In addition to the gunshot residue, a deeper background check reveals Alicia had easy access to a gun similar to the murder weapon.
Brian apparently had owned a .45 caliber weapon that could not be found. A .45 caliber weapon was used in this crime. No weapon was ever found in this case, but the holster was found in their home.
Still, one could argue the findings of the gunshot residue test aren't quite a slam dunk.
They only found one particle of gunshot residue on the back of her right hand.
But when coupled with the circumstantial evidence, it's enough to charge Alicia Hughes with the murder of her husband. The story is immediate front page news in Jackson.
It was sensational. It was huge. I mean, you have this picture-perfect couple who were high school sweethearts, the perfect love story that ends in a tragic murder.
I didn't want to believe that she did it. I didn't want to.
But nobody claims to be more shocked by Alicia's arrest than Alicia herself.
You always assume that people are going to believe you. And so I always felt like surely they can't consider me because, I told the truth.
There was intense interest in this case because it had everything. It had the cheating husband. It had the wife accused of shooting her husband.
And as the case heads to trial, it becomes clear that a guilty verdict against this wife and mother turned alleged killer is anything but a done deal. On January 3rd, 2007, Alicia Hughes is escorted into a Jackson, Mississippi courtroom to stand trial for the first-degree murder of her high school sweetheart turned unfaithful husband, Brian.
We thought it could go either way in this trial. I think most folks at that time thought Alicia Hughes probably was guilty of this crime. Just from, talking to some of the folks from the community out there, a lot of them thought she was guilty, but they actually wanted her to be found not guilty because they sympathized with her as the wife of a cheating husband.
In their opening arguments, prosecutors come out swinging.
That Alicia Hughes, in fact, murdered her husband, Brian Hughes, in cold blood.
I told him exactly how she did it, how she waited for him to come home, how she walked in, how she confronted him, how he was on the phone with Robbie.
I'm sick of you lying to me!
How she shot him.
Lie to me one more time.
After pumping several shots from a .45 into Brian, Alicia allegedly staged the scene to look like an intrusion.
Their theory was that Alicia Hughes got those shell casings from the inside and actually placed them on the outside.
Prosecutors contend Alicia also feigned grief in order to convince police to let her leave the scene, which allowed her to smuggle the murder weapon out of the house in her overnight bag.
There was speculations that she planned to shoot him that night. There was talk that she was upset that she had called him several times that night. There was also talk about her perhaps drugging the kids to make them sleep.
She drugged her own children with Benadryl so that they would sleep through the entire ordeal.
A pharmacist testified that how Benadryl would affect the child. If you drug the child to make them sleep. Well, his testimony regarding how that drug would affect the child was exactly the way the children were behaving that night of the murder. I believe this was all premeditated. She planned it. She waited for Brian to come in that night, and then she killed him. She's got two motives. One, the insurance money, and two, an unfaithful husband. You take your pick.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
To support their claim, the state calls Brian's lover, Robbie Rayford, to the stand.
Ms. Rayford, can you please tell the court the nature of your relationship with Mr. Hughes?
We were lovers.
How long were you involved with Mr. Hughes?
2 years.
She's up there in front of the whole world, basically saying, I'm Brian's mistress. And she said she loved him, and her exact words were,
He was my soulmate.
Can you tell us about the events of June 3rd?
I was on the phone with him.
Yeah, just got home.
I heard him go in the house. And he
see you
says,
tomorrow.
I have to go.
Gotta go.
Then I asked him, is she in the room? And he said, yeah.
That's when he was shot.
And for the court, can you tell us who she is?
His wife.
Everything Robbie said fit with the physical evidence. The phone calls that she said she had that night, it fit with the cell phone records.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you have to know that the physical evidence is not adequate to convict Alicia Hughes.
Alicia's defense team counters by attacking the physical evidence, namely the GSR test.
She had a speck of gunshot residue powder on her hand, just a small speck on the back of her hand.
For someone to have shot a .45 caliber pistol 5 or 6 times, there'd be GSR on her hair, there'd be GSR on her face, on her arms. It wouldn't be one single particle.
They can't provide a weapon.
The defense also points out the lack of a murder weapon, which renders their theory about Alicia smuggling it out in her overnight bag mere conjecture.
If she could have done that good, she doesn't need to be here. She needs to be in Hollywood. You know, she's one of the best actresses that ever lived.
On January 8th, 2007, 2.5 years after Brian's murder, both sides rest their case.
And you had folks who said they thought Alicia Hughes was guilty. You had a lot of folks on the other side said this sweet teacher couldn't have killed her husband.
2 hours later, the jury returns with its verdict.
The jurors were saying, guilty, guilty, all 12 of them, just over and over again. And I was still trying to grasp, onto that and trying to keep my face straight.
We were in total shock and disbelief. She couldn't believe it.
Alicia Hughes, please stand. Mrs. Hughes, on the charge of murder in the first degree, I am sentencing you to life in prison.
Alicia just stood there like, there's no way.
As she's carted off to the penitentiary, tears flow from both her supporters and Brian's grieving family.
Made you wonder what is going through her mind at this moment. Is she reliving that night? Is she wondering what's going to happen to my kids? Brian and Alicia had known each other since high school. So these are also two families that had known each other for many years. And to be divided because of a situation like this made it really tough.
But before either side can put this tragedy behind them, they'll be blindsided by an unlikely turn of events that forces everyone to question whether Alicia Hughes was a cold-blooded killer or an innocent woman wrongfully accused.
I was sitting on the edge of my seat, wondering, what's going to happen.
In January of 2007, Alicia Hughes is convicted of murdering her husband and former high school sweetheart, Brian.
The jury found her guilty of killing her husband. Brian Hughes' family, they believe that justice was served.
But immediately following Alicia's conviction, her attorneys file an appeal, arguing prosecutor Stan Alexander unfairly struck jurors in the selection process on the basis of race and gender.
All you heard was Stan was racist. He didn't want black women on the jury. And it's ridiculous. I'm married to a black woman. My mother's a black woman.
Surprisingly, presiding Judge Winston Kidd grants the appeal, ruling that Alicia's right to a fair trial amongst her peers had been violated, in essence, overturning his own verdict.
It was like just instant relief. It was just absolutely an incredible feeling.
I was not happy about it. As lawyers, you learn to respect the judge's rulings. You may not always agree with them. And this is one I respect, I don't agree with, but that's why he wears the robe. That's his job, to make the legal rulings.
On November 5th, 2007, 9 months after her first trial ended, Alicia Hughes walks back into a Mississippi courtroom to stand trial once again for the murder of her husband, this time with a new panel of jurors. And again, the state argues that the evidence still points to just one person.
After we read the entire book, and not just read the cover, you're going to find out the story of Alicia Hughes' life, that she's guilty of murder.
Prosecutors also called Brian's lover, Robbie Rayford, to the stand to help corroborate their version of events.
Well, what did those words mean to you when he was at home?
It meant that his wife was in his presence.
As in the first trial, Robbie Rayford's testimony seems to connect the dots of the state's case, particularly as it relates to the blood evidence.
There's no way possible you get shot at the front door with a 45 5 times and don't bleed until you get back to the living room floor.
But when it's their turn, Alicia's defense team takes a new approach. And this time they're armed with some serious legal firepower.
They brought in a top-notch attorney, Dennis Sweet. He's really a high-profile attorney in this area, especially in the terms of criminal and civil cases. He wins most of his cases, has an impeccable reputation for handling cases and winning.
There's some heavy hitters connected to it this time. These guys are known to win their cases, so when you see that she has them on her defense, you start thinking, okay, this is going to be an interesting trial.
Sweet starts by criticizing investigators and the chaos that permeated their crime scene.
The defense pointed out that numerous folks, individuals were allowed in the house that same night during the shooting, which may have contaminated things.
Everybody was there. I mean, it was like they all came relatively at the same time. It was all family members. They came through the back door. Now, did they contaminate the crime scene? No question about that. They never should have been there.
They didn't secure the scene. The crime scene investigator himself is pretty good. He doesn't lie. This crime scene was not secured. He came in, he's not supposed to secure it, he's supposed to investigate it. So it was like Grand Central Station going through it. He said, yeah.
With so much foot traffic at the crime scene and so many alleged affairs, Sweet asserts it's impossible to determine exactly who killed Brian.
The problems I saw were mainly the infidelity. It came out later on. I feel strongly it's not family. And I think there is some gunman out there who, for whatever reason, whether it's a jilted lover or whether it's some drug dealer that came and killed him. I feel like there's somebody still out there.
There were several other theories, and again, we didn't have to prove anything. We felt certainly that there were questions that were unanswered.
After running through the laundry list of jilted lovers and seething spouses who might want Brian dead, the defense turns to another piece of unexplained evidence: the skid marks found outside the home the night of the murder.
They said that skid marks could be there and there was no way to date them.
But Dennis Sweet claims he's found someone who can.
Dennis went and knocked on doors, and he found a neighbor that said, you know, the police never interviewed me. They never come to my house.
On the stand, the Hughes neighbor Dorothea Presley tells the court that on the night of the murder, she awoke to the sound of gunfire.
After you heard the shots, what did you hear anything else?
Shortly thereafter, I heard a car skid away.
She heard the squelching of an automobile tire, like someone, leaving real fast after she heard gunshots. This lady had impeccable credibility. And I think that single witness probably provided the boost to the defense case.
On November 16, 2007, the jury once again breaks for deliberation.
I believe everybody was sitting on the edge of their chair wondering, what are they about to tell us? The courtroom was quiet. It seemed like it took forever for the jury to walk in and sit down.
Go ahead and bring the jury in.
Nobody was speaking. It was just total silence. You could hear a pin drop.
Again, it takes just 2 hours for the jury to return with a verdict.
We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty.
When that second jury came back not guilty, it just doesn't get any better than that. Best case of my life, tremendous.
I don't even remember hearing all the words that were said after the not guilty. I was so thankful to God and to that jury.
Friends and family of Brian Hughes are devastated by the verdict.
They wonder if there'll ever be justice for Brian Hughes. In their minds and the minds of many who knew him, they think a killer got off.
You don't make friends like that. They just exist. So when they lose them, you can't replace them. Whoever pulled that trigger, they gonna get theirs one day. Judgment day coming. It's probably coming quicker than they think.
The only person that could have done it was Alicia Hughes. The only person that had GSR on her hand was Alicia Hughes. The only person that had motive to kill him was Alicia Hughes.
A lot of folks think that Alicia Hughes is a person who got away with murder. And there are those out there who think that someone else killed Brian. What's interesting is that we may never get the answer.
He was the charismatic pastor, and she was his faithful wife.
He developed a real nice relationship with this wonderful woman.
Along with their children, they formed a heavenly choir.
They all cared about one another, loved one another, and they all sang together.
But a horrifying discovery shattered this gospel-singing family's perfect harmony.
This story is so unbelievable that people think that this can't be the truth.
There was a shock and horror that such a thing would happen.
When investigators pry open this case, they uncover a crime of unspeakable depravity and the story of one God-fearing family's descent into pure evil.
Is this like a movie or something?
Who does that? How could that happen?
Monday, July 28, 2008. As the sun settles over the city of Mobile, Alabama, a team of police officers enters a nondescript bungalow located at 258 Ryland Street.
It was the homicide unit, an ID unit, our crime scene investigators. I had one other child advocacy detective that was with us.
It's down there to the left.
The officers are investigating a bizarre missing persons case, some 3 years in the making.
Did you say the last door on the left?
It's kind of a shotgun house. All the rooms are kind of off of one main hallway.
At the end of the hallway, there's an unlocked door, but officers can only partially open it.
Something blocking that door. Stinks in here.
It was a freezer. You know, think of a chest freezer. I want to say maybe 3 feet long.
That stinks.
Officers find the freezer has been taped shut.
What do you think? We open it up?
Yeah, open it up.
All right.
Look in it, and it's just a mass that was humped over inside the freezer.
Officers shine a flashlight inside.
I'll never forget looking into the freezer. Everybody was shocked at what we found.
How did this body get here?
In my mind, I'm thinking, oh man, what do we do next?
To answer those questions, investigators will have to dig deep into the personal lives of 2 of Mobile's most God-fearing residents, Arletha and Anthony Hopkins. Hailing from Wadley, Georgia, Arletha Best grew up in a warm, loving home.
She always wanted to have a big family. She was also a Christian woman, and so she wanted to find someone who had her own faith and beliefs and also loved music.
But by her mid-20s, Arletha found herself divorced and raising 2 young children on her own.
Arletha's first marriage didn't last very long, but she did have 2 daughters by her first husband. But now she's single, she's raising 2 kids, and it's hard. She's struggling.
Then, one Sunday during church, Arletha laid eyes on the man who changed her life forever, a dashing soldier by the name of Anthony Hopkins.
Hi. Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
He was in the military. At some point in Georgia, they met in the church where they went.
Are these your 2 daughters?
They are. Say hello, girls.
Hey, how you doing?
Anthony shared Arletha's love of music and her devotion to God.
To Arletha, this is the perfect man to have as a partner. She finds someone who served his country, who's into God, who's into the church, who's into music.
They developed a relationship. They ended up getting married.
All right, everybody hold hands.
Hold hands.
And God bless our wonderful family that we have here.
This marriage, it's like a romance made in heaven. They're into church, they're into their singing and music. This is a dream come true.
And all the blessings that you put on us, God. Amen.
Amen. All right, everybody, dig in.
As Anthony and Arletha's love for each other grew, so did their family. In addition to Arletha's 2 children from a previous relationship, the couple had 5 kids of their own.
She's got 2 children, and what does he do? He's a great man. Why? Because he says, I'm going to take care of your children as if they're my own. And not only am I going to do that, but we're going to be blessed enough to have children of our own.
She marries Anthony and she thinks it's great. They expand on their family in addition to her 2 daughters who become Anthony's stepdaughters. And they have a wonderful family relationship.
But one day, Anthony made a surprise announcement.
God is calling me. I've decided to become an interim preacher.
He decided he was going to pursue a preaching career.
He had a servant heart, having a military background, and then being called in the ministry.
You have our support.
But instead of enrolling in seminary, Anthony chose a different path.
For the Lord says, have no fear of sudden disaster or the ruin that overtakes the wicked.
He moved with Aletha to Alabama and became an itinerant preacher, standing out on the roadway, preaching to people at picnic areas and whatever. And basically, they were homeless. But then he felt like that's what God wanted him to do.
We need to act now. Why would you do that? Why would you not help your neighbor out?
Needless to say, Anthony's approach was hard on the family finances, but Arletha never lost faith in her man.
He's not really making any money to support his family, so times are really tough. But Arletha wants to support him because she thinks and feels that he's doing God's work.
I was thinking that hopefully we could bring you aboard into one of our ministries.
The couple's faith ultimately paid off when Anthony was approached by a pastor who offered him a job and lodging at his church in Jackson, Alabama.
God has been calling me since I left the military, and I just think, wow, it's preaching, it's my new calling.
He became more popular with his ministry and was able to start making some money doing it.
Anthony's sermons soon became a hot commodity on Lower Alabama's evangelical preaching circuit.
Would preach on the weekends and on Wednesday nights at these different Pentecostal churches in the area. And he was quite popular.
As Anthony's stature in the evangelical community grew, so did his family's.
They settle in a church, and the family forms a gospel group called the Hopkins Ensemble. And they also travel and sing together while Anthony continues to preach.
They would go sing in churches, and all the kids played instruments, and very musically oriented, very, very popular group.
And in 2004, Anthony and Arletha were blessed with more good news.
And all of a sudden, 10 years into their marriage, they find out they're pregnant again with their 8th child.
Great, good job.
But that's when tragedy struck. One Sunday, a tearful Anthony took to the pulpit at a local church and made a gut-wrenching announcement.
Brothers and sisters, today with great sadness, I have to report to you, Arletha has died.
When she gave birth, they went to Georgia. She died giving birth to that younger son, and he just buried her there in Georgia, where her family was.
I asked you to pray for our family.
People were absolutely devastated. They didn't get a chance to tell her goodbye. The news was just very shocking to them. Arletha had become such a beloved member of the church community.
But the loss of their matriarch wouldn't be the last tragedy to befall the Hopkins family. A series of mysterious events is about to play out that reveals a dark family secret and unleashes a scandal of near-biblical proportions. Traveling minister Anthony Hopkins and his loving wife Arletha are living a blessed life. But shortly after the birth of their 8th child, Anthony makes a shocking announcement. Arletha has passed away.
I ask for your comfort for my young daughters, for our family.
She died in childbirth, and he explains to them that they took her back to Georgia to bury her.
He's stuck with a house full of kids. You have to just pray and keep going.
Anthony is confident that through his faith and the support of his family, he'll survive the loss of his beloved Arletha.
It was a single father raising 8 kids on his own, and you see how talented they were, playing music and singing, and yet he was doing all this by himself, and everybody was amazed by it.
Now let's get those troops ready. Let's go.
Thankfully, Anthony has help in the form of Arletha's oldest child,
All right, did everybody eat?
his stepdaughter, 16-year-old Chantel.
Formation. Come on, get in the right formation.
The oldest daughter steps into play of mother. She feed the kids. She clothe them. She help them with their schooling. She assumes that mother role.
Fast forward 3 years. It's a brisk morning in the winter of 2008 when one of the Hopkins neighbors notices something strange.
The oldest stepdaughter was out there and had no shoes on.
What are you doing out here?
Or the neighbor started walking down the street and said, "What's wrong?"
Are you okay?
I got in a fight with my dad.
She took her in.
Tell me what's going on. What's wrong?
At first, the now 19-year-old is hesitant to say what's wrong, but as she becomes more comfortable, Chantel explains she's upset with her father.
This boy that I've been talking to called the house.
Young man had found interest in her, and she was upset because her dad got on the phone and said something to that young man, which drove him away from her.
Now the guy won't talk to me.
Those things happen. I know they happen all the time, but I think it'll work itself out.
The neighbor tells Chantel not to worry. That's when Chantel makes a startling confession.
I'm pregnant.
Oh, Chantel.
What Chantel says next practically floors her neighbor.
It's my stepfather.
I'm leaving home because my stepfather has had sex with me and now I'm pregnant.
This is crazy. This is just like unbelievable. I mean, she's just, no, this couldn't happen. No, this couldn't happen. Anthony Hopkins is a preacher.
Psychologically, there's a whole lot, I think, much she had to go through, and this was a great big burden on her. And she didn't seem like she wanted to tell it all, but she just wanted to get a little something off her chest.
Chantel, we've got to tell somebody. We've got to go to the police now.
No, we can't tell anybody.
And the daughter was like, well, I was always taught, if I say anything against my mother and my dad, God will curse me.
We can't go against my mother and father. It's a sin.
Fearful of what her father may do next, Chantel asks the neighbor if she can stay with her. She agrees under one condition.
Okay, baby, we have got to let somebody know this.
In order for you to stay here with me, you're going to talk to the police or you're going to talk to your pastor. You got to tell somebody this story other than me. So they decided to talk to the daughter's pastor.
Chantel's neighbor drives her to the church her family attends when her father isn't preaching. In the pastor's office, Chantel tells her story again. Only this time, she adds another, more horrific twist.
And I know that he has started sexually abusing my sister. And he used the Bible to make it seem like it was right, but I don't think it is.
She felt that he was molesting her sister, the next to the oldest daughter, because of the way he would give her a certain look. Because he would give her that same look when he first started molesting her.
But after listening to Chantel, the pastor rejects her story outright.
I've known him for over 15 years. There's a demon working in you.
The only demon working in me was him.
Is Chantel telling the truth? Or are these accusations a way for a young woman to lash out against her stepfather?
She did not want her dad to be controlling the child like she had been controlled.
But Chantel isn't done telling her story. And what happens next will ultimately lead investigators to the freezer in that house on Ryland Street. And a gruesome discovery, some 3 years in the making. 3 years after Arletha Hopkins died during childbirth, the family she left behind seems to be thriving. But in July of 2008, a bizarre string of events calls into question everything people knew about Arletha's husband, Anthony, and their family. It starts when a 19-year-old young woman enters the office of police officer Michael Shavers.
How about you start with your name?
Chantel Hopkins.
When she first came in and sat down, started talking to her, she was crying at first. Tears were coming to her eyes, and she was upset.
Okay, Chantel, tell me what's happening.
She had been having sex with her father, and that It started when she was younger, probably 11 or 12 years of age. They were inside of a truck driving. He told her the story about Lot and his daughter, that they got him intoxicated and had sex with him, and more or less said, well, it's all right to have sex with your daughter because it's in the Bible.
It's unclear. Did the oldest daughter go to her mom and say, Mom, I'm being abused? Did she conceal it from her mother? Did the mother know and turn a blind eye? Did the mother know and not want to believe what she heard?
Apparently, Chantel's mother initially refused to believe the abuse was happening until she witnessed it with her own eyes.
Aletha. What are you doing? Aletha, she's upset.
That's my daughter!
They was in this church bathroom, and she just happened to walk in. She saw him feeling on her. They got into this big fight and argument.
How could you? Aletha, calm down.
That's my daughter! I saw you touching my
Aletha,
daughter!
no, that's not what you saw.
Anthony vowed he would never touch Chantel again. But Chantel claims it wasn't long before her stepdad broke that vow.
He enjoys apparently what he does. He gets the proper payoff for what he does. Anything that we enjoy enough, we will normally continue.
The sex continued even though they were in counseling for it. That it slowed down for a period of time, but it still continued.
Calm down, baby, calm down.
It's a chilling story. But is it true? Corporal Shavers has his doubts.
This can't be true. You know, it's just too outrageous.
A lot of times, stepchildren lash out. It's a way of manipulation to get what they want.
Is she trying to get back at him? Is she trying to get him in trouble? Or is this crazy story really the truth?
In order to determine if Chantel is telling the truth, Corporal Shavers asks her a few more questions, starting with her mother.
We didn't know anything about Arletha other than she had died in 2004. So we're more or less closing up the interview. And I just asked her, I said, well, tell me what happened to your mother.
And she tells him that my mom is dead and her father killed her mom.
He killed her.
Mm-hmm.
When?
About 4 years ago.
Okay. What did he do with the body?
In a freezer in our house.
Okay. Hold on just a second.
The story sounds too bizarre to be true, so Corporal Shavers reaches out to homicide detective Kent Quinney.
Yeah, what's up, Sark? This young lady says her mother was killed by her father, and she's in the freezer.
When Detective Quinney hears what Chantel has to say, he has trouble keeping a straight face.
Say that again. I reacted like, this can't be real. Maybe she's exaggerating a little bit to make her story seem more real, but that's a little far-fetched.
Of course, the story appears to be preposterous. This can't be. The abuse enough is something that would cause the police to be in disbelief, but a murder?
After speaking with Chantel, Detective Quinney does a little digging and quickly finds a more logical explanation for Aletha Hopkins' death.
Yes, Pastor Jones, Detective Quinney.
I talked to several preachers. One of the pastors that I interviewed said that the wife died in Georgia giving birth.
But there is one family friend who claims to have heard a much different account of what happened to Aletha.
She went out to California as a seamstress to work with movie stars or something to that effect.
Why would Pastor Hopkins provide two such wildly different accounts of what happened to his wife? Did Aletha die in childbirth, or has she moved to California? Hoping to get to the bottom of it, Detective Quinney gives Arletha's parents in Georgia a call.
They more or less told us that they had been isolated from Arletha. They had tried to call her, and every time they tried to call her, Anthony would say she can't come to the phone, or she's not here, or something like that.
In each of these calls, Anthony never mentioned Aletha moving away or dying in childbirth.
This family tried for months to reach out to their daughter, to their sister, and couldn't get her. And I think they eventually gave up and just thought she doesn't want anything to do with us.
These varying accounts of what happened to Aletha certainly raised some red flags. In order to get to the bottom of what really happened, Detective Quinney circles back to Chantel and her astonishing claim.
She just made the story up to hype her molestation story. But of course, we got to go over there and check it out anyway.
That afternoon, Detective Quinney and a team of officers head to the Hopkins residence, hoping to speak with the pastor and, if need be, search the house. But not even the most seasoned investigator is prepared for what awaits law enforcement inside the Hopkins home. Police in Mobile, Alabama are investigating startling allegations against Pastor Anthony Hopkins. His 19-year-old stepdaughter Chantel claims the pastor has been sexually assaulting her and that she is now pregnant with his child.
She drops this bombshell. She's making accusations about things that have taken place over the course of several years. And the first question is, if this is true, how did all of this go undetected?
But Chantel's sexual assault claim is trumped by an even more jaw-dropping allegation that Pastor Hopkins murdered his wife, Chantel's mother, Arletha.
He killed her.
Yes.
And has been storing her body in the family freezer for over 3 years.
You don't think of things like this happening in Mobile, Alabama. You know, it's just something you see on TV. It's like a movie or something.
Investigators hope to question the pastor about these allegations. But when they arrive at his house, Pastor Hopkins isn't home. But Chantel lets them in and leads them to a utility room near the back of the house.
It's right down there to the left.
Something blocking that door.
It had its own door. Once you open that door, the freezer sits behind the door. You can't open the door fully. You had a slight stench, not a strong one, but a slight stench. And then the flies start to gather. Many times you have a decomp body, flies gather around that house. Thoughts in my mind's like, oh my God, it's real. She's telling the truth.
CSIs cut the tape and slowly open the lid on the freezer.
They had the freezer open, and all you could see was the edge of a hand with 2 fingers, because the rest was just a big ball and sheets. But you could still see the palm of a hand with 2 fingers sticking out.
They learned that the story that they were being told by the stepdaughter was not, in fact, a story, it was reality.
A forensic team is called in to examine the body, but there's not much they can do until it thaws.
They had to get a hand truck and wheel the freezer out and then take it to the lab and figure out how they were going to take the next step.
As the freezer is transported to the lab, investigators race to find Anthony Hopkins.
At that point, it becomes a, let's find him, find out where he's at. That becomes our focus.
But finding Pastor Hopkins is easier said than done. According to Chantel, her father had left town to preach earlier that day.
The stepdaughter ended up telling us that the vehicle that he was driving was actually purchased from one of these companies that sell cars that put GPS locators on the vehicles.
Investigators contact the dealership to obtain the vehicle's GPS coordinates. They also run a test to determine if Chantel is telling the truth about her pregnancy.
I'd contacted the DNA center. The oldest daughter ended up having the DNA test.
If she's telling the truth that her father is the father of her child, there's probably truth to the rest of her story, that her mother was killed.
But it will take several days for the results of the paternity test to come back. In the meantime, investigators turn to Chantel to find out just what happened to her mother. Chantel tells them that in December 2004, just weeks after her mom gave birth to the family's 8th child, her parents got into a heated argument.
I know you've been touching Chantel. Yes, you have.
Whatever started that fight that night, it had to do with her daughter and the fact that her daughter was being raped.
I'll call the police. You better not call nobody. Get out of my house. I ain't going nowhere. Get out of my house.
She threw him out of the house and locked all the doors and told him he's not coming back to the house.
I'll be back. Get out. I'll be back.
Chantel.
Chantel claims that later that evening, she heard a tapping on her bedroom window.
What are you doing outside?
Anthony Hopkins knocking on the window. And when she went to the window, he said, "Let me in my bedroom."
Why didn't you go to the front?
She kicked me out.
Why?
It's complicated.
You guys got in a fight?
Yeah.
Pastor Hopkins convinced Chantel to let him in, but Arletha overheard the exchange.
Chantel! Did you let him in?
And she recognizes Anthony's voice, and she bangs on the door telling him, "Come out of there, come out of there."
Open up this door!
According to Chantel, another fight ensued.
What are you doing here? Shut up! Shut up! Get in there! You have to leave! I don't have to do nothing!
Push Alita's into her room where the kids hear a bunch of arguing and a bunch of knocking around, her screaming for help. Call the police, he's trying to kill me.
You have to go! I ain't going nowhere.
Chantel claims she ran into the room to break up the fight.
What are you doing?
She sees Anthony over Alita's head, and her feet was kicking back and forth like she was trying to get air.
All of a sudden, the pleas and the cries are silenced.
Moments later, Chantel's father emerged from the bedroom and asked Chantel to help him do the unthinkable.
Come on. Come help me bury your mama.
They take her then an hour or so north to Jackson, Alabama, and they dig a hole behind one of the churches where he preached.
Chantel says at that point, she and her stepdad rolled her mother into a shallow grave. But a few days later, the pastor started having second thoughts.
Chantel, I'm gonna need your help again.
And asked Chantel to help him move her mother's body.
God wants your mother to be with us.
She had obeyed her dad so long and did things that were so unusual until she just followed the pattern. She developed a pattern of obeying him, and that's what she did.
Once they get there, her body had bloated at this time, and it broke the dirt off the ground where she was coming up. So he digs her back up to bring her back to Mobile.
When Anthony and Chantel returned home, Anthony directed Chantel to the utility room and the freezer he had recently purchased.
As the daughter described it, Arletha wasn't a really small woman, and she didn't really fit in this freezer, and Anthony Hopkins actually jumped on her body to make her fit.
It's gonna be all right. She's gonna be here with us right now, okay? This is what God wanted her, okay? It's gonna be all right. She's home now.
I think this control over the children was exactly what he wanted. And his wife, no doubt, would not accept it. And since she would not accept it, I'm sure she had to go.
But investigators are thrown for a loop when they receive the results of the autopsy report.
Forensic doctor wasn't able to determine what the cause of death was because of the way she was deteriorating when she finally defrosted.
The forensic report is a setback, but it doesn't slow the detectives down for long.
The investigators are moving full speed ahead. They're going to get the results of the paternity test, and then they need to find this pastor because they want to question him.
But bringing Pastor Anthony Hopkins to justice will prove trickier than investigators ever imagined. Pastor Anthony Hopkins and his wife seem to have a picture-perfect, God-fearing family. But that facade comes crashing down in horrific fashion when their daughter Chantel comes forward with a shocking story of incest, rape, and murder.
People are stunned as this story begins to unravel. It's the pastor. It's his wife. It just defies logic in everyone's mind that this family could be holding these secrets buried for so many years.
After finding Arletha's body in a freezer inside the Hopkins utility closet, authorities were now desperately trying to locate Anthony Hopkins.
The oldest daughter advises that they have purchased a car, one of those car lots that keeps a tracking device on it. You know, if you don't make your payment, they're able to shut it off and come and repossess it.
One of the other investigators ended up calling and getting a number to someone that owned that lot, evidently, and they ended up pulling the GPS information up off his home computer.
The GPS traces the vehicle to a church in the rural town of Jackson, Alabama. When officers arrive, the parking lot is nearly full.
We walked into the front door, and what I realized, it was a foyer. There was another set of doors that led into the sanctuary. So we were able to look through the doors, and when I first saw him through the doors, he was standing in front of the congregation. He was preaching, of course.
Brothers and sisters, today's our sermon is about forgiveness. We have to forgive each other. You not agree, brothers and sisters? Yeah. Nobody's perfect here.
I made entry into the church, and then all of a sudden he stopped preaching and it got real quiet. And everybody in the church was watching me. And I approached him, and when I asked, was he Anthony Hopkins? He said, yes, I am. Well, immediately I put him down and put cuffs on him.
Sir, what is this?
Place your hands behind your back.
What is this about?
As I was patting him down, he was continuing to ask me, what was this about?
What kind of travesty is this?
The more he asked me, the more frustrated he got. After about the third or fourth time, I said,
I guess
it's got something to do with that body in the freezer. Put your hands behind
What are
your
you
back.
talking about? I didn't do anything.
Relax.
I didn't do anything.
Relax.
Let me go. I didn't do anything.
Officers transport Anthony to the Mobile Police Department, where detectives attempt to interview him. But if they were hoping for a quick confession, they were sorely disappointed.
We were going to try to talk to him, but he had already lawyered up at that point in time. He had said that he didn't want to talk.
Anthony's lack of cooperation is problematic for another reason. Despite finding Arletha's body inside a freezer in their home, investigators are having trouble piecing together evidence that fully supports Chantel's story.
They could not prove that this was a murder case because of the state of the body. Too much time has passed away, and there's no proof that Anthony caused any intentional act to cause her death.
Further complicating matters is the fact that Chantel's sister Tasha contradicts nearly everything about Chantel's story when police take her formal statement.
She's pretty much in denial about everything, and she pretty much denies anything was going on between her and her father at that point in time.
But just when it seems the case can't get any more convoluted, detectives uncover a crucial piece of evidence.
They ended up doing a subsequent search of their bedroom. They found a diary that was written by the second oldest daughter.
She had this personal journal that had some wishes that she wished would come true in her life.
She wanted a closer relationship with God and wanted to have a better relationship with her father without having sex with him.
That journal tells a different tale, a tale of a person who internalized what was happening to her, was her way of expressing it by putting it in the journal and, of course, corroborating the story of the older daughter about the miserable sexual abuse.
I think this child probably developed at an early age, make herself numb and not have no feelings about what went on. And it may take a long time before she really have those feelings.
But Tasha's journal isn't the only piece of evidence that bolsters Chantel's statement. The paternity test results are back. They confirm Pastor Anthony Hopkins is the father of Chantel's unborn baby.
There's no denial that they were having sexual relations because the 19-year-old was pregnant at the time, and the DNA results show later that it was Anthony's child.
Our concern goes from, wow, this is true, to, okay, we've got to get him before he hurts any other children.
The Hopkins children are placed in the custody of Child and Family Services, and Pastor Hopkins is placed in county lockup.
He was charged with murder, rape second, sodomy second, and incest.
When we find out this happened in our community, man, it just devastated everybody. Him being in the ministry, or so-called being a Christian, makes this worse.
On April 6, 2010, Pastor Hopkins' trial begins.
Your Honor, members of the jury, the state intends to prove without a shadow of a doubt that this man, the defendant, Anthony Hopkins, using his vocation as a pastor, manipulated, planned, and controlled to rape Chantel.
He didn't mind using the Bible and manipulating and mischaracterizing the Bible to even justify his relationship or his raping of his daughter.
In addition to murder his wife.
the prosecutors, they were trying to make him out to be a monster.
As for a motive for these heinous crimes, prosecutors argue this case boils down to one thing: control.
He was their God. He was their provider, and he had total control of all their lives. They were brainwashed. They had no influences outside of what he told them.
We will use facts, witnesses, and testimony to prove these charges.
According to prosecutors, once Arletha discovered the dark truth about her husband, she threatened to turn him in. In response, Anthony decided to take her life.
Arletha and Anthony had been fighting for quite some time over her daughter. And basically Arletha had walked in and caught Anthony Hopkins molesting her daughter. Perhaps she threatened to go to police, and, he shut her up.
You call the cops, I'm gonna kill you, because you ain't going nowhere. You have to go. Get out!
Prosecutors then called the state's medical examiner to the stand. In grim detail, the ME recounts the discovery of Arletha's body.
It appears that it went through several temperature changes or fluctuations potentially. It may have thawed some and then refroze.
Of all of the autopsy photos that I've seen, none of them stand out to me like this one did. Arletha Hopkins is literally a block of ice.
As powerful as it is, the medical examiner's testimony presents the defense with an opportunity.
The body's been frozen for almost 4 years. Is there any signs of blunt trauma?
Not that we found.
Why are you saying it's homicide? What about ligatures where there's, marks like looking of strangulation or something on the neck?
Not that we were able to determine.
I can't rule out that she died of natural causes.
So you really don't know what caused death?
No.
The body was frozen. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Then how can you say that this case is a homicide? I don't quite understand how you can say that.
Having scored big in their cross-examination of the ME, the defense takes a gamble and calls Pastor Anthony Hopkins to the stand.
So raise your right hand.
My jaw dropped. In all the murder cases I've covered, I don't think there's another defendant here locally that's taken the stand. Nobody anticipated Anthony Hopkins taking the stand. And when the defense was presenting their case, looked at each other like, what could he possibly say? The case that the prosecution presented was so damaging, so gruesome. I mean, it was just full of crazy, horrifying details. What could this man possibly say on the witness stand?
Well, when he took the stand, everybody leaned forward. They wanted to hear what he had to say. We had a packed courtroom and everybody started listening.
After being sworn in, Pastor Hopkins tells the court how much he loved Arletha.
Oh, wow. Arletha was fantastic. She was my angel. I loved her.
And how his faith allowed him to persevere even after his wife's tragic death.
I would never hurt Arletha. She's the best wife ever.
We want to try to let the jury know this man used to be in the military. He's a family man, had kids that love him. There's more to the story than what the DA is saying.
Pastor Hopkins also informs the jury of something most folks didn't know about Arletha: her poor health.
The lady was overweight, had diabetic problems, high blood sugar, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, did not take care of her diet, ate a lot of fried foods, and was sedentary a lot in her lifestyle.
Well, what was the cause of her inexplicable death?
It was her health.
According to Pastor Hopkins, health problems claimed Arletha's life in December of 2004.
He left, came back, and she was laying on the floor, and he tried to help her, and she was dead. He doesn't know what caused her to die. Doesn't know if there was a heart attack, blood pressure.
But why the freezer?
Well, God wanted me to be with her. God told me that he wanted her near me, and I wanted her near me also. I couldn't stand to be without Arletha. I loved her.
He said that if he had called 911, then the family would have been split apart. He said that for the good of the family, he had to just hide her.
You know you're accused of rape as well.
As for the rape charges, Pastor Hopkins admits to sleeping with his stepdaughter, Chantel. But he tells the jury their relationship didn't begin until Chantel was 16, the legal age of consent in the state of Alabama.
I'm absolutely sure. I never raped anybody.
He described a night that he said she essentially seduced him, is how he said it, happened.
His wife had been dead for 2 to 3 years, and he hadn't been with a woman, and then his daughter walks in there in this chocolate negligee, and his emotions took over.
One thing led to another. She came on to me.
You're saying she initiated the relationship?
I never would have done that. I know I'm a man of God.
Folks in the court can't decide if the pastor's testimony is heartfelt or just plain disturbing. Either way, it appears to have sown the seeds of reasonable doubt with the jury.
He manipulated this family for so long, he felt that he could manipulate the jury.
But just when it seems the case has tilted in the defense's favor, the state calls a star witness of their own, one who will spell out in no uncertain terms what a monster Pastor Hopkins truly is. After Pastor Anthony Hopkins' gripping turn on the witness stand, it appears the momentum in his murder trial has swung toward the defense. But no sooner has he left the stand than prosecutors call their own surprise witness, Hopkins' stepdaughter, Chantel.
She was very emotional. We had to take breaks for her to gather herself. It was just so emotional. You couldn't help but believe what she was saying because she was so detailed.
Did he ever touch you in a way that was uncomfortable or inappropriate?
Chantel tearfully recounts for the jury the countless sexual assaults she endured at the hands of her stepfather.
It started when I was 11. We would have sexual relations.
Was the relationship with the defendant and yourself consensual?
No.
The oldest stepdaughter talked very openly about the relationship, the rape with her father. And she told the jury that this started when she was 11 years old. And she didn't hold back on any of those details.
So, Chantel, shifting gears a little bit, how does this relate to your mother's demise, her murder?
She found out what we were doing. She confronted him.
The oldest daughter, I think that was the most effective testimony of the trial. She was the key witness. Her testimony was so emotional that it had members in the jury crying. It just had everybody crying. And even the defense was crying.
It got emotional, yes, it did.
In the end, Chantel's testimony proves to be the deciding factor. On April 9th, 2010, the jury finds Pastor Anthony Hopkins guilty of murder, rape, sodomy, incest, and sexual abuse of a minor.
Guilty on all counts.
People were happy that justice was served. These kids could somehow put the pieces of their life back together and try to move on.
It takes the jury an hour and a half after deliberating to reach a verdict that he's guilty. And you have to think, certainly, it will never, ever bring his wife back, the mother of his children back. But what a sense of relief for that community, that a person, a monster like this, a person in the face of evil, will be put away for some time to come and got what he deserved.
The judge sentences the pastor to life in prison, plus 51 years. But even with Pastor Hopkins behind bars, the fallout from his heinous crimes continues to reverberate.
And mom is gone, but dad's gone. Who will they believe? Will they be able to ever trust anybody? Since these were the closest people that they ever had.
Perhaps the saddest fact of all is that Arletha's longing for a godly man, a soulmate to be with through all eternity, would one day cost her life and ruin countless others.
You just have to think about how a person with a beautiful family, beautiful children, and everything in the world going for them, how could it possibly come to this? And when you think about it, it's heartbreaking. It's gut-wrenching. It defies human comprehension. It defies logic. It defies decency and humanity. And particularly when it comes from a person of God, it's just sad, it's stomach-turning, and in fact, it's disgusting.
People have to live with the consequences of these crimes, and it reverberates throughout the community. In this particular instance, not only was the immediate family affected, the church family was affected, the community and the neighborhood was affected.
This is one of the biggest cases that affected my life because it's involving men of God, which we call preachers. And after this case, it affected me greatly. I didn't want to hear another preacher preach. It was hard for me to attend my church. It didn't shake my faith in God, but just the faith in man that God called. Because now in my mind, I'm wondering, are you truly called by God, or is there something you're hiding?